So just a reminder, if I weren't so lazy, there'd be down below the video, there'd be links to tell you to the index and all that kind of stuff. It didn't get done the last couple of weeks because I was in the process of moving. And at this point, I have moved. I'm out of the old place. I'm in the new place, and I have no idea where anything is. And I got my computer set up about 5 minutes ago, and it's running. And other than that, I guess there's nothing more to say right at the moment. So we'll turn it over to Terry.
Okay. Um, I've been last week. I was doing the 3D printing for my quadrature encoder for my snow thrower, and I wanted to start testing it and getting it wired up. I see I now need to understand how Onshape does their wiring cables function, which is kind of neat. But I made this little bracket to hold a motor that has its own quadrature encoder. So I'll be able to compare it. And then I made an adapter bracket so that I can put my quadrature encoder on it.
That's awesome.
And I've got it running. I was trying to put the circuit board in, tapping this hole, and the 3D printed post twisted off. So I'm going to have to reprint that part. But that's not the fun part. I connected up the existing quadrature encoder to the USB device that I talked about that does the logic analyzer. So I'm going to share my screen. This is the basic screen. It's got the 8 channels. I've got it in basic digital. I did set the speed so that its sample rate is 2 megabits per second and 2 megabytes worth of samples. So that's going to be 1 second worth of timing. You then just press the capture once. And you can see how it's got the 2 channels, the A and the B. And then I can zoom in. And we can, I don't know if you can really see it, but there's the channel A and then there's the channel B. Is that coming across?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then there's this measurements box here that, so I can see that, okay, the width is 16 microseconds for a period of 32 microseconds. It's got a frequency of 30.769 kilohertz and a duty cycle of 50.8. And so then if I kind of put some resistance, capture it again, I'll expect to see it's now at a frequency of 29.41. So you can see how it's changed it a bit.
So that's a live feed. That's not like a screen capture.
No, that's not a screen capture. When I do the capture once, it records it.
And you've got the motor powered up there.
Right. I've got it running right now.
That's awesome.
It's not as cool as when I hooked it up an O-scope and watched the waveforms change. We were at Robot Shop of Horrors many years ago, but it's still pretty cool. And then I'll be able to compare the optical interrupters that I've put on my quadrature encoder, which I'm sure will be a much lower frequency.
And so what RPM is it spinning at the moment?
I don't know exactly. I think it's about 100 RPM.
So you just have a straight 12 volt or something going into the motor, or are you driving it through a motor controller?
I just have it connected directly to my actually 18 volts or whatever the battery pack is at.
Man, that's awesome.
And so eventually I want to be able to say, okay, I want it to turn at 50 RPM. Keep
So
it at that.
a few 3D printed parts and two of those, I don't remember what,
Optical interrupters.
that are dirt cheap, right?
Pretty much so, yeah.
That's so cool.
Anyway,
And resolution per revolution? How many ticks?
I currently have I have not checked it, but the wheel has 29 holes. We'll have to play with that a little bit once I know how it deals with them not being exactly 90 degrees off. Out of
So in
phase.
terms of revolutions, though, you've got 29 holes plus 29 or some other number close of solid. So
Yeah.
you're
58.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. But that's cool.
It's close enough for what I need to. Because I'm not really wanting to know a specific distance. I just want to know, is it still turning, and is it turning at the same rate that the motor's turning?
Oh, congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment from my perspective.
I've been working on the code for the Itsy Bitsy using the Circuit Python. So I'm learning that now also.
Oh,
I
never tried to do one of those little boards with Circuit Python. So
there's the breadboard with all of that. But it was real easy to get started with the get the Circuit Python going, and then it only took about 8 lines of code to do to read that quadrature encoder.
very neat.
So, but it was counting up so fast. Like 30,000 was just like that much, because it's a 100-to-1 gear ratio, and I think there's 96,000 pulses, 9,600 pulses per revolution of the motor shaft. So that times 100, that gives you a lot of pulses. Anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna hopefully get this figure out OnShape's wiring so I can get that drawn up, then get it connected into my board that I will then mount on this orange thing and have an output for channel A, channel B, and then input power and ground. That's what I've got going.
As far as your motor pulses, if it is counting too fast, look at your quadrature decode software. Sometimes they'll give you the option to set it at 1x, 2x, or 4x. And
Yeah,
if it's coming in too
does
fast,
have the
set it for
divisor.
1x.
It has that ability. I just haven't tried doing that yet.
And does that chip have a hardware quadrature decode, or is it using the software to decode that?
Software and interrupts, but it's got I think 16 interrupts.
I was going to say if it had the hardware decode, I'd pick your fastest source. So that would probably be your motor to be the fastest source and feed it into the hardware decode. And that way it'll probably handle it no matter what you throw at it. But if it's all
Yeah.
software decode, then you can just play with it and see what you come up with.
I'm gonna hopefully be able to then also drive the RGB LEDs, since I only have, I think I counted, there's only going to be about 25 LEDs on it. I figure that should be able to handle the string that short. But I need to go now, so
Okay.
I look forward to seeing what you guys do.
Good to see you, Terry.
Take care.
Well, I spent a fair amount of my time on two subjects. One was the memory. I had to rebuild a PC, and I won't belabor that very long. But what the root cause appeared to be, I had this hardware installed for RAM memory, and check my SS. It ended up being the RAM memory, which is I got to say the first time I've ever had RAM memory go out. So that was a bit of a challenge to debug that, and it was DDR4 3600 megahertz RAM memory. So, and it was the errors were very weird that it was triggering. So yeah, rebuilding Windows from scratch and finding all the drivers and all that stuff took a few days. And what I was trying to do was, Jeff, you had mentioned before, maybe I could use my ComNav Chinese GPSs on my base station, and you may not remember it, but we had previously talked about, could I program the GPS, hook it up and program the GPS from like a microcontroller. And so I thought, well, I'll try to take one of these RPi 3s that I've got lying around and hook that up. And I was just using what I had available. And so I realized that an RPi 3 doesn't have sort of 3 UARTs natively, but I found some input about how I can go through some gyrations to get 3 UARTs out of one Raspberry Pi 3 to hook up to the 3 different UARTs on the GPS. So that's what I've been working on in the process as well. Had to figure out power for the RPi 3, which it was yelling at me for just using a wall wart that I had. So it wasn't obviously putting out enough. So I switched to this 12 volt to 5 volt, 15 watt, 3 amp deal. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. Is I've got stable power to the RPi 3. I've got an approach, I think, to getting 3 UARTs so that I can build my base station out of the Chinese ComNav GPS, and then work on mounting my 2 NavSpark GPSs to my robot and get all that correction data through and happy. So that's where I'm at the moment. Not much to physically show.
So I did finally get moved out of my old place and moved into my new place. And I want to say it's fairly uneventful, but no, it wasn't. So, and after all was said and done, I was in so much pain. My back hurt, my legs hurt. I had one of my ankles was swollen. So I decided what I'd do. I just kicked back for a couple of days and see if I got better. And it turns out that I did in fact do seem to be getting better. And I'm trying to avoid lifting anything heavy at this point. So this morning I moved some stuff around because I had to put my table in a spot that So I got a blank wall behind me, and so that's kind of where I'm at. And everything's in boxes, and I have no idea where anything is. And part of it's here, and part of it's in my garage, which is just outside, and part of it's in storage units. And so it's if I want anything, it's going to take forever to get back to a normal life. So I just have to start on that one of these days. And I did get my internet, and it's through Xfinity. And I was surprised that, you know, I hated the cable company so much I didn't even want to look at their stuff. So I was looking at the CenturyLink, which is the phone company, and everyone says, oh, they have DSL and they have fiber. So I was looking at the fiber stuff, and it says, oh no, you can't get fiber where you're at. You have to get crappy DSL or even more crappy DSL. And I looked at that for a while, and I got on a chat with some guy, and he's telling me how great it was. I thought, well, yeah, it's really not. I think it's the fast one. I think is 80 megabits per second, and it's the same price as the slower one, and which is 40 megabits per second. It turns out they come up with something new on DSL. It's something called a bonded pair DSL. They actually bring two phone lines into your house, into the box, and somehow magically mix those together so that lets it run twice as fast.
Right.
I've got some modems that worked on the old stuff, the non-bonded stuff. And if I didn't want to pay them as $15 to $17 a month to rent the box, I had to go with the slower one, which would be up to 40, what did they say, 40 megabits per second. And the stuff I had previously before I got the fiber, when I used it on the meetings, that one said it was up to, I think they claimed it was up to 15 megabits per second. But when I plug it in, I get 20 megabits per second out of it. So anyway, long story short, I decided for I could get something else for the same price that's a lot faster. So I went through Xfinity, and they had with all the promotional stuff. I ended up with something 600 megabits per second download.
Oh my heavens.
And it's 150 megabits per second upload, I think is what it is. So that's, far superior to was. And basically, for the same base price, I could get that. And what was the other issues on that? And then also, they're going to give me free equipment rental for 1 year. And they're going to they're throwing all kinds of stuff in for 1 year. So basically, it comes down to the fact I'm getting that internet for $55 a month. And then with taxes, it was coming to like 63 or something. And when the thing was, I kept putting this off, and I was talking to CenturyLink, and I knew it's going to, once I sign up, it'd be 2 to 4 weeks before somebody would come and hook this up, or possibly I could just plug it in and work. But anyway, I was looking at the Xfinity stuff and thought, well, how am I going to do this? Turns out they have Xfinity stores. You can walk into a store and say, I want internet. So I found one close to me and walked in and says, I want internet. And he started writing stuff down, and before long, he says, oh, you can get this option here. He kept showing me stuff that didn't match what I'd seen before on the website. And it turns out, there's little check boxes or little click buttons that you do that, and the whole screen changes. So anyway, we got down to the point where that seemed to be working. And he walked in the back room, came out with the equipment and handed it to me. Says, go home and plug this in and turn
Everything
it
will
on,
work.
and you're ready to go. So there's no 2 to 4 weeks to get it to work.
Nice.
I got charged no installation fee. And I've got, it's some state-of-the-art box. And somewhere along the line, he's trying to push streaming services on me. He says, oh, you might want streaming services. No, I don't want that. No, but look at this wonderful. No, I don't want that. So finally, I walked out of the room, or walked out of that place with the internet stuff, took it home, plugged it in. It did indeed work. And that's what I'm talking on right now. So I'm happy with that. I kept thinking, well, I was thinking it would be like an extra $5 a month to get the streaming stuff. And I didn't realize it also comes, I think it comes the full, standard cable TV stuff. So it's got all cable TV stuff. Plus I could get Peacock as a streaming service. He says the most popular one, you get Peacock and Apple TV Plus and Netflix. And I've been wanting Netflix for years because I keep seeing all stuff go by. I can never watch it. That's the only place it is. So I went back over and says, can I still add this on? And he said, oh, well, yeah, here's the most popular package. It had those 3 streaming services and the cable TV stuff. And so I said, okay, I'll take that. So, and then I had to get yet another box, but that was free too for a year. So I took that home, and I haven't got that figured out yet. I just got the cable plugged right into the television. and said, scan the channels, and none of the channels line up. So I'll probably hook up that little box and fight with that. And they give me like a TV guide type thing that'll line up then. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. So I do again have internet, and that's a real pain not having it. So what else has happened? So I'm really back to the point where, you know, just any day now, I'm going to start digging through boxes and trying to figure out what I have and what I need to throw away. So that's kind of where I'm at. So as far as the place I'm at now, let's see how to do that. Say share screen.
We're still recording, by the way,
Yeah,
I think.
let's see, desktop 1. Is this right? We'll try this. How come my screen disappeared? Huh. Well, anyway, I can see my screen that I'm sharing. I can't see the outgoing feed. Anyway, it looks like according to this, my outgoing feed is working. So anyway, here's a Google Maps thing. And I live in this big apartment building here, and it's got like a parking lot that goes all the way around. And there's one road here that goes up to this is the entry road, and this one has another one that's not shown there. I know across the street there's a park, which is handy. I don't know if people complain about me running my robots at the park or even running robots at here. So we look at it this way. No. So the park looks like this. So here's an entry to the park, and there's this sidewalk that runs all the way around here, and you can see there's tennis courts, and I don't know what all this stuff is. It's probably a baseball diamond or something, and they probably use this for soccer. But anyway, that's just right across the street, and then over here is the apartment building. So it's again, here's the parking lot that runs around the outside like this, and then out here there's a fairly steep driveway that goes up to the road, and over here there's another one. You can't see it because there's a tree in the way. But I was thinking, you know, there's enough terrain here that, you know, I could test things like, you know, if I'm going up or downhill, is that, you know, how could I adjust my motors and stuff to make that work?
Absolutely.
And then over here, this is actually
It says highway. How, I mean, are you risking death to try to walk across that highway?
not really. It's kind of a crappy little residential thing that nobody's ever on. There's something else I thought that's something you could try is see how do you get your robot to drive up to the road and then check for oncoming traffic before it crosses the road. You know, I was trying to make a whole list of things that you could, you know, work on. You know, I got a new world to live in here. You know, the old place I lived, yeah, you were risking your life to try to go out in the street at all there. But here, there's very little. Cause over here, here's the big road. It's Highway 88 over here. It's like a big 2-lane road, but there's just a little residential thing that runs through here. And, you know, most people just avoid it because there's nothing there. So let's see, what was my other point? Oh, so then also here, so it's got the sidewalk that goes up to an entrance or a sidewalk from this way. And this one does not have a curb. I think this is the only one that doesn't have a curb. So you can go from the parking lot onto the sidewalk if you've got a big enough wheels. And then this one I think has a curb. And this one here I think has a curb. And the one coming out this way has a curb. Now, if you come down here, I think you can get all the way through back here. It's hard to see with all the trees, but I think they're just like a grassy area that goes all the way around. So theoretically, I might be able to go all the way around the whole thing. So that's something else to experiment with. And there, as I say, there's enough terrain here that you can go up and down hills and for the big hills. These are big hills going up the driveway to get out onto the street there. So that's something I can, you know, put on my list of things to try. And so far nobody has seen my robot, so I don't know if anybody's going to complain about it or not. So I'll find out. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at now. And if here's something interesting. Here's another apartment just north of me here, and they've got these solar panels up, and then they got parking spots under them. So I think people have their electric cars, they park under them and charge them from the solar panels. And that's, you know, it's probably an expensive place to live. And see, they got lots of solar panels on all this stuff. In fact, I think that's what these are, and that's what these are. And so anyway, that's my new world and my new life. So we'll see how this works out for me. And as far as this park,
I think you got some GPS friendly and GPS challenge spaces to test in. That's cool.
Yes, plus there's big power lines. And do you have any problem with your power lines affecting anything? So here's the power lines here that run across. And that's yeah, that is just north of where I'm at. So my garage is right here, and this is that 6-yard dumpster that's right next to it. For some reason, they don't push it back in where they're supposed to. They leave it out in the parking lot. So that's annoying. But anyway, so my garage is right here. And so if when I want to dispose of stuff, I just take it out of the garage and throw it right in the dumpsters. So that might make it easy to sort stuff and get rid of stuff to be able to do that.
On
And
the interference, I was never able to get LoRa faster than 3 hertz from an update rate standpoint. So I don't know if that's because of the power lines or just my programming ability, but it could have been the power lines. So something like LoRa might be infected by
yeah,
those.
on that note, I'm not sure, how fast my LoRa stuff is, and I don't even know what to look at to know. So, but yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Actually, it works well enough because I took my robot out of my car, I put it on the ground, and actually drove it into the building. So I parked right here somewhere and drove it up here into this entryway. And then the other apartment building, it's got a security door here, and then right about here there's a let's see, probably right about here there's a fire door inside, and then I probably live right about here. Let's see today. Yeah, I live right about here, I think, inside of this building. And but anyway, at the time, I felt I was just lucky to get anywhere to live and didn't, so I wouldn't have to live in my car out on the street. And so one of the first things I could just go out and walk around and see what this edge of the building looks like here to see if I can walk around. And then I think right here, there's I think the curb ends right there. So I think, I could drive my robot there into this. And it gets wilderness fairly quickly going out there, but I think it'll still work. And then at this side, I think it's the same kind of situation where come down here far enough, there's a way to get into, probably no curb. You can get back into here. So that's just things I just want to make a list of things I could try and see what I can make this stuff do. So
New adventure.
yeah. So anyway, that's what my world looks like now. So let's see, how do I turn this stop sharing? Is that what that says? Stop share. Okay, now my screen came back. I don't quite understand why it's doing that, but anyway, that's what it did. So
And I checked that Xfinity while you were talking, and that they service my area too. I'm like, holy cow! I thought you had to get all their TV stuff if you wanted to get internet through them.
well,
So,
it turns out you don't, and this thing is a special promotion. So for 1 year, I get all this free equipment, and I get this price. Then after 1 year, I think it almost doubles in your pricing if you take it for the second year. And of course, they got all these little tricks. If you want, you can say, "Oh, I want to sign up for 2 years at a time," and you're guaranteed the price. So now you're basically into a 2-year contract at that point. I didn't want any contracts. I wanted, if I don't like it, I want to be able to just cancel it. And I didn't realize you could even do that with these kind of people. But I think they started wising up and realizing they better quit screwing people, and they better take what they can get it while they can. So anyway, I've got it installed and it's working, and I'm at the moment I'm happy with it.
and that I see, at least on the online version that I'm looking at, it has a number of devices at a time. Are you seeing any issue with that for you?
I wasn't sure what any of that meant. You dig through their web page and they have conflicting statements, and mine said something, well, up to 8 devices at a time. And I don't know if that means, I'm looking at my modem right now. I think it's got 4 Ethernet ports on the back. Actually, it's got 6 Ethernet ports. So I don't know what the extra 2 are. So it's not that. And I don't know, how any of that works. But I think the one I got says it'll run eight devices at a time. And I don't know how they control that or anything else. So I know right now I've got one device running, and I've had 2 or 3 computers on at the same time.
And you're using their router. I mean, the thing that plugs into the wire coming from the street is their router, their device.
Yeah. And it turns out these apartment buildings, they wised up a long time ago, and every apartment is wired for cable TV. So they got a box somewhere, and they got coax that comes down the wall, and there's a jack on your wall. It's already pre-wired. And that's apparently why I didn't have to do any installation. They said you do a self-install. They handed me the equipment. I had to modify the connector on the wall because the last person that tried to unscrew it, it just got one of them like an F connector adapter. So, the cable inside hooks onto that and then hooks up the wall jack. Well, then the previous people had some kind of cable screwed onto there when they unscrewed it and unscrewed the adapter. So that was just laying there loose. So I had to take it apart and put that back on. And other than that, it worked okay. But yeah, it's I just took their box they gave me and it plugs right into the cable connector on the wall. And then it's got Ethernet coming out and it's got automatically has the Wi-Fi in it.
Neat.
So that's where that's at, I guess.
Yeah, the online thing I'm looking at, year one, $50 a month, year two, $75 a month for the 1100 megabit version that has 12 devices. The 45 a month is 8 devices. Then
And I have no idea what any of that stuff means. They've got all these little weird things they've made up. And now my previous company that was USI is US Internet, and it's their fiber option. And they said, you want this? You either get 500 megabits per second or 1 gigabit per second. And one was like, at the time, one was like $50 or one was $55 and one was 65, I think. And that was like $10 difference. So it was like 50 and 60. And then after I had it for a few months, they said, oh, we're gonna have to raise our price. And they raised it all the way up to $65. But there's none of this screwing around, picking all these little options. You either have it or you don't, and you pay us or you don't. That's the way their stuff worked. And this is so it turns out, let's see how long it would take me to pull this up. Let's say USI fiber pricing. Just try this. Where is it? Coverage map. Now, I hadn't really thought anything about this when I was looking for a place to live. Again, I just needed a place and nobody seemed to want to talk to me. So if I come here, and I'm not sharing yet. So it turns out if you look at this, let's see, share screen. So if you look at this is the whole Minneapolis area here. Anything that's green is already turned on and blue is the proposed stuff. And I used to live over right in here somewhere, I think. Yeah, I lived right in here somewhere. And then I just moved up to this area right here. And unfortunately, this right here is where I moved to. And you can see it's about 6 blocks east of their actual coverage area, and about
not proposed.
Yeah, and just a few blocks south of the proposed one. So I asked the guy one time, says, well, are you gonna put it in? He said, oh, you have to keep checking back to see what we're gonna do. He says they put out like a report like mid-April or something. They say, here's what we're gonna do. This is the status of what we're gonna do. And they just simply look at their map and it says, they just boxed all these areas off, said this is where we're going to put it in, and all the green stuff is where it actually is. And I have nothing for, so I probably have no hope of getting it. But so in a year when I have to move out, I should look ahead of time. This way I'll know it's coming. So I can start looking, several months ahead for a place to live and then try to get something that has a decent internet. And hopefully it'll work out better next time. It won't be quite as much of a surprise as it was this time.
Well, I would say decent is what I've got, which is 150 upload, and what you've got is flipping phenomenal.
What technology do you have? Is it cable TV stuff or is it?
No, it's just Verizon. I mean, probably five
Oh,
or 10-year-old fiber FiOS, Verizon FiOS
oh, okay,
service.
okay. And so here's the entire Minneapolis, St. Paul. St. Paul's over here, and they're mainly doing the Minneapolis area over here. And see down here, they're expanding to the south and a little bit out west, and then up north they got this big chunk. So boy, it looks like I might in the time I'm here, they might come in and do it, but that's just to be seen, I guess. And as I say, this one's I had the 500 megabit per second upload and download. So the fiber stuff, it's just it's real technology. It's not these things about, oh, you can download at one speed, but then when you want to upload, it's a lot slower.
Right.
Well, the fiber stuff works both ways, and they don't have all these stupid little plans. You can do this or give us extra money for this. So anyway, I was real pleased with that, but the world said, no, you can't have it anymore. You have to go somewhere else and start over. So that's what I did. And I haven't gone out and run my GPS, but it should work, as long as there's no interference to keep my cell phone stuff from working. Because my cell phone. Oh, the other thing is, with this plan I got, they also want to give me a full year of mobile service. So they say, if you got a cell phone, you just go click on this, and we'll give you a free year of whatever the mobile stuff is. And
Wow.
but I don't have an extra phone kicking around, and I don't know if I would deal with it or not. I'm sure it's far superior to what I'm getting through TrackPhone, because TrackPhone has more cute little things. Oh, you can't turn this into a hotspot. You can't do this, blah, blah, blah. Whereas I think if I'd get a real one, I could just get a phone, put it on there, and it might even been unlimited data on this thing for a year, which is my TrackPhone one. I think it's set to one gigabyte per month, which I was finding that out because I stuck with no internet, so I started using that. I've used about half a gigabyte so far this month, trying to get everything up to this point. So, but now I've got internet again, so I don't really need to use it that much. So they have lots of cute options to sucker you in.
Yeah,
And
lures. For some reason, I feel like a fish in this. There's the lure. Follow that around.
yeah, I fell into that trap and got the streaming / cable TV stuff. So that's what I mean, an extra $30 a month to get that. So basically, the 3 streaming services, you could think of that as $10 a piece, and then they throw in the cable channels for free. So, and I need to go through that. They gave me something called a Zumo box, and it's like a Roku box or a Lightning box, whatever, Fire TV. It's
So it
something like that.
spits out the HDMI signal.
Yeah. And since I plugged it right in the cable right into my TV and said scan, it's I can't figure it out because I'm watching things that I think are supposed to be cable TV, but I'm like, oh, the ads for Roku keep popping up, and the TV's a Roku TV, so I don't know if they figured out a way to intercept it. The signal comes out and says, oh, time to do advertisements, and then they just give them 60 seconds or whatever, and they substitute it in. So I'm not even sure that what I'm watching is cable channels, but it seems like it has to be, but I don't know. So anyway, that's all confusing. And then this thing with the Zumo box, I have to figure out how to hook that up, and then I got to go. Apparently, they don't actually do Netflix. They just simply are taking a cut, and then you subscribe to Netflix anyway, and then it just gets billed through this or something. I don't know how it works. So anyway, I got to figure all that crap out. I just wasn't in the mood last night to do that. I had
So
something I could watch.
the actual topology, the actual physical line plugged into their router is a coaxial cable, or is it a fiber?
No, it's the old plain old cable TV type cable.
Wow. That's a heck of a lot of speed pushing through a coaxial cable.
Yep. So anyway, those are all my updates where I'm at, and I'd probably take a few more days. I'm trying to, I'm down to the point where I just have just kind of a constant nagging pain now in my body. It's not, I had the point, one point I went to Walmart and bought a cane because it got to the point I couldn't even walk anymore. And then my legs weren't working. I couldn't lift my legs up. And that's real annoying. You try to drive your car and you have to lift up your foot and put it on the clutch. If you can't lift your foot, that's a problem. And if you have to lift your other foot to press on the brake and you can't lift your foot, that's a problem. So anyway, that just more, it kept getting worse and worse. And then thankfully I was done. I was done having to move stuff. And then I was going to wait a couple days, and that's been several days now that I haven't done anything other than just kind of kick back and do nothing. And things seem to be clearing up. So I don't think it's going to be permanent, all the damage that happened to me. So I don't know. I'll just have to wait and find out.
Wow, a heck of a physical toll, it sounds like.
Yeah. And I guess as far as robots, I've dug through, tons of junk as I was moving it. I keep thinking, oh, there's that thing, or I should work on that someday. And it gave me lots of inspiration, lots of things to think about. But now the stuff's all packed away, and I'll never see it again for months. So we'll see how all that turns out. So I'd say I got nothing else on robots, or no more status on the fact that I moved. So do you have anything else?
I'm good.
Okay.